we're going to cover today is to recognize that Michio Kaku, who wrote the book The Future of Physics, also was the guy behind the superstring theory, which was largely supported by the Higgs boson a few months ago. This particle brings us into better understanding that these two books will become required reading for the Doctor of the Future. Because for $54, this MIT-trained physicist has given you 2,000 references to make all of what we're talking about today much more understandable and exciting. So whether you think healing is because of microcurrents with voltage, or you want to understand photonics, because in photonics we start talking about the idea that where does life come from? Is it all totally dependent on sun, where we get all the plant life coming to life and everything, or is it also got other aspects, like the magnetic component that is generated by the center of our Earth? Because if you're on Mars, you're not very alive. Without a magnetic field, there isn't any life. So as we start to put all these principles together, we have an epidemic of problem, and one of them is HSDD, now believed to affect 30 to 40% of women, and of course, obviously, men with their ED having to buy the little pretty blue capsule at $10 a piece or more are all subject to the diagnosis of not just ED. Let's go beyond that. They're having nitric oxide deficiency. Well, let's go beyond that. Is it always due to aging, or why are we getting so low on nitric oxide? Well, same question that Otto Warburg answered. Why do we get cancer? He got the Nobel Prize in 1991. And he tried to explain that, yeah, the cell is anaerobic and it has low membrane potential and low ATP, and that's where cancer starts. And the bottom line is the cancer cell wasn't able to generate enough energy to meet its needs, so it switched to a less energy-intensive form of metabolism, fermentative. Well, you already have an electron deficiency. What we're saying to you here is, are we all aging too fast, or is it the toxins? And as Otto Warburg said, it's toxins, folks, the electron transport chain that is responsible for the conversion of oxygen and glucose into energy monitored by, and measured by ATP is not working efficiently. Take a simple single enzyme. Any enzyme that doesn't get all the zinc that it needs, because lead in the body replaces zinc, and we have mercury in everybody. So there's reasons that tie it to diminished low nitric oxide. Yes, we will definitely want to treat symptoms the same way we used to treat heart disease, by giving you nitroglycerin tablets under the tongue. But instead of giving everybody Viagra, we might want to learn what's going on and what could we do to raise nitric oxide levels more naturally and certainly more affordably. So if we look at the big picture, we want to say nitric oxide. It's a cell signaling molecule. It's a neurotransmitter. It is a vasodilator with a very short half-life. And it's absolutely mandatory for normal circulation to any part of the body. It becomes really a problem when it goes into kidney failure, kidney dysfunction, heart disease, ulcers. So what are we going to do about this? Well, the causes of low nitric oxide. This is a very abbreviated, but we can at least utilize this to think about. Nitric oxide pathways, cofactors. Well, that's the same as I just gave the example. If you're going to need an enzyme working efficiently, and that enzyme has to have zinc, but the body has not getting much zinc in its diet and it's got a lot of lead, you're going to have a key enzyme, part of a cofactor, not working efficiently, or low levels of hormones. And of course, we now know that those of you who are lucky enough to belong to my forum on anti-aging and chelation therapy by now are aware that we have a safe answer for women on the estrogen issue. It's called Herbal Remedy from Thailand. That's abbreviated HRT. Its big name is Pueraria mirifica. But what we have to say is, what about the men? At what point do we give them testosterone? Well, it's now clearly established that men really do function better if you give them testosterone. I give virtually all of my men patients prescriptions for testosterone, either topically or by injection. But here I am, having been born with virtually no stomach acid, so I spent a lifetime being sick. And since I came in from the area of trace elements, and I became knowledgeable, and I was the director, the medical director of Mineral Lab with offices in Tokyo and Amsterdam and Boston, San Francisco, I really studied a lot about trace elements. So I would have told you that one of the reasons I was sick all of these years is without my stomach acid, I didn't absorb essential nutrients like magnesium. So as you start putting all this together, or you could say that because the guy is a smoker or he's working around a lot of chemicals, that he has a lot of oxidative stress that leads to reactive oxygen species. Or you could just say, hey, the poor guy's over 40, so he's got endothelial dysfunction. But then you also have Dr. Gordon's FIGHT program: food, infection, genetics, heavy metals, hormone, toxins. And the FIGHT program really tells you, if you spend any time on my website at all, I have done a recent update, 2 sessions, each a little over an hour, kind of reviewing all of the current research on which food are you sensitive to, how do you find out which one you're sensitive to, what food supplements should you be getting, what are the names of the infection you have, because there isn't anybody listening to this talk today that isn't fighting a chronic undiagnosed infection. And don't just jump to Candida or chlamydia or think that what everybody's got is Lyme, because the one that Harvard says you've got in 96% of people is cytomegalic virus, which is a herpes family infection. And it grows in the plaque on your arteries, and it leads to hypertension in your body, and so nobody's treating it, but Harvard says 96% of people fail the test. So how are we going to change this picture? I mean, food, infection, genetics, heavy metal, hormone, toxin, any of those areas, if I do your genetics, nobody comes back without problems, because I don't care who you are or what you do for a living. The federal government has done the studies with Center for Disease Control and FDA, and these studies are published, show everybody we test is loaded with bisphenol A. That's dioxin and PCBs and polybrominated diphenyl ether and mercury, whatever you want to talk. But what has that got to do with anything? Well, it turns out that bisphenol A is a synthetic estrogen, which is an important thing because really it's an estrogen receptor modulator. But if we look at this big picture that I'm trying to bring to your attention, we have got these chronic infections, and we do have in anybody tested a deficiency of some important detox enzymes. So I wind up giving everybody methylation support so that our vitamin C oral product has in it MSM, trimethylglycine, methylsulfonomethane. Why do I do that? I give everybody sublingual B12, which is the methyl form of B12 and the methyl form of folic acid. Again, why? Because bisphenol A changes your genes overnight so that even if everybody in your family lived to 90 or 100, doesn't mean you're going to, because these toxins that are in your body, provably, you cannot escape. No place on the planet is free of the flame retardant called polybrominated diphenyl ether in big quantities. Let's keep it simple. Your sperm count when I got out of medical school 54 years ago was on average 140 million. Today it's lucky to be 40 million, so you've lost 100 million sperm. So please try to understand, don't kid yourself. What I'm talking to you about is extremely important, because when I get to the end of this talk, I'm going to try to tell you what's so exciting on the horizon that lets you know that you're in all probability going to be alive when you're 90 or 100 or even more. But as the old saying goes, if you'd known you were going to live that long, you'd take better care of the body. So part of my motivation today is to open your eyes to things that you can do. And we're going to teach you how the physics, and bring the physics back into the physician, is part of the future of medicine, is to learn that physics, where I can have you learn not just to sleep on a magnetic pad or have a set of magnets at home in case you fall down and break your ankle or have anything else that hurts, but to have you become more knowledgeable about low-level laser and microelectric current and color and light and vibration. So we want to put this in the right light. I really feel that nobody has the detox program that Longevity Plus offers because it was designed by me, and I've spent millions of dollars sitting in the front row in meetings and everywhere. But I want you to know that you do have chronic infection, and we can treat that pretty well with ACS silver. We can prove that there's none of these infections do very well if you simply take a good dose, like an ounce a day. That's 50 sprays 3 times a day for a month or so or longer. You'll build up enough of a proven silver, not one that people just busy sell. This one is documented at BYU Medical Center under Dr. Robinson at the head of their special level 3 research laboratory on microbiology, that it will absolutely kill any of the infections, including Lyme. Nobody has this kind of data, but what we're looking at is the big picture here. I don't want you thinking that just because people can buy Viagra that they are going to reach their maximum intended useful lifespan with any brain power or any vision, because the nitric oxide is not just about sex, it's about all circulation. So I've got to take people to understand these are the problems that we associate with aging and low levels of nitric oxide, dementia, eye disease, infections themselves, because if you don't put up enough nitric oxide, you don't overcome your infections unless you use tons of C, lots of A, take the silver and do some of the special garlic and everything. But we fight insomnia and depression and osteoporosis, erectile dysfunction. These are all nitric oxide deficiencies. So let's face the bottom line. Just like I told you, the average sperm count is down to 40 million or less. Everybody has some of these problems that are on this chart. So what age are we going to start doing something? Well, do I want to give, let's just say that we come up with a tablet that isn't Viagra but is more general and helps the circulation to your toe and your nose and your eye and your brain and your kidney. What age are we going to start it at? Because when the child is born, the child has 1,000 times too much lead in every bone in its body. That's Caltech, Claire Patterson. It's documented. And Harvard has done the study under Deborah Showerman and is published in the Journal of the AMA. The level of lead in your bone determines how soon you go blind and ties to how soon you die of a heart attack. So let's get this picture. All of these are diseases that some big specialist is an endocrinologist, and somebody else is a big nephrologist, and somebody else is the big expert on pulmonary disease, and none of them talk as we are now talking. The bone disease, the psychiatrists, none of them are tying it to the simple fact that nitric oxide deficiency is the underlying mechanism. I learned that when I was at the conference with the Cleveland Clinic, which was in Las Vegas in early December, and they sponsor a conference there that sounds like Garry Gordon talking. Now, that's amazing. What I'm saying to you is that the Cleveland Clinic under Dr. Michael Rosen, R-O-I-Z-E-N, who's the head of their wellness department, wellness medicine, they wind up teaching people to do many of the things that I have all of our 3,500 doctor members talk about and use when they join free of charge my forum on anti-aging and chelation therapy by going to my website, gordonresearch.com, and becoming part of my free school of advanced medicine. But what I'm taking you down the pathway here is we're always trying to go a little deeper, drill down deeper. Let's get at causes. I've already pointed out that the Earth's magnetic field is down to 0.5% of the power of the magnetic field that we had at the time of dinosaurs, and that you cannot live, just like Mars is a dead planet, if our magnetic field was to go to zero, then none of us are talking. But there's all these pieces of the puzzle, because we all know that technically we are also light starved. And so you start to realize that people are more and more recognize that we all have to take vitamin D, but you can't take vitamin D for life without adding vitamin K2, because there's so many pieces of this puzzle. We won't get it all covered in today's webinar, but I hope to stimulate your interest, because I have some exciting things that all this leads up to. Because as you know, so many people have been dramatically helped with the PMF that we get nothing but warm reception at any conference I go to, because there's doctors who have bought the equipment, and one of them, like Dr. Conrad, who routinely gets people's macular degeneration and diabetic retinopathy and glaucoma, not only to stop going worse, but always going better, always. And he's bought the PMF because he sees how it fits perfectly with his energy-based, homeopathic-based, nutrition-based program to save you from going blind. So we have to try to put all this in some context so it's not too confusing. I tell everybody that Lance Pauling was my friend, and I designed the vitamin C that Longevity Plus has, which is the most advanced delivery system of oral vitamin C available anywhere in the world. So, of course, it's the most expensive because you don't make it work unless you add methylsulfonamethane, trimethylglycine, all the essential sugars from aloe vera, ribose. So it's not just vitamin C that you buy when you go to some discount place. But cancer patients stay alive because vitamin C is an electron donor, and it's also a chelator and helps pull. But if you look at these slides, you're trying to deal with what can we do with diet alone. We can't all afford all the supplements Dr. Gordon takes. What I take is hoped that someday I would get so well that I wouldn't have to take everything. And I recently tried to go 2-3 days and see what would happen, and I immediately got into trouble. I wasn't born healthy, so the good Lord wanted me to have a guinea pig. That guinea pig is me. So I was born with all these high fevers, and I had total stomach ache, chlorhydria, I had lowest magnesium ever detected in anybody, and the highest level of mercury because all my teeth rotted out because I ran high fever. So the good Lord wanted me to have somebody to test. And so I've been testing. So at age 78, I'm beginning to put a program that's pretty exciting. And I hope by the end of this presentation, it'll all make more sense to you, because look at, not everybody wants to eat celery or Chinese cabbage, but these absolutely provide you the nutrients like the nitric acids that will help go into the nitrates that will give us the ability to make nitric oxide. And so that's why the vegetables are so important. So what we're talking about is circulation, because you're as old as your arteries. And you've got arteries jammed into your kidney by lots of them. And every artery is lined with a little thin piece of saran wrap, and that saran wrap adds up when you take 7,000 miles of blood vessels and then all the capillary, and it adds up to being one of the major organs in your body. Just like skin is a major organ, the lining of arteries is a major organ. So we need to have more people who are endothelial specialists. Instead of having a diabetologist and a nephrologist and a psychiatrist, we need to have people who understand how this works. Because if the blood flow isn't working to any part of your body, you got bladder problems or you got brain problems. So we know that we can't all afford to be as sick as many of us are, and it gets very depressing to realize that the data shows that the poor people who are unfortunate enough to go to an oncologist because they have been diagnosed with cancer are, according to New England Journal of Medicine recently, many of them are being given false hope because the oncologist takes their money, spends $100,000 in a year to give them some chemo, and they're dead only 2 weeks later than they would have been without the stupid chemo. So we don't want to get into false hope, but what we want to have is things that work for people. And exercise works. And exercise works largely through nitric oxide. And so when I teach people that when you use the pulsed electromagnetic field, you can push so many toxins out, you can get sick and have a rash or get a flu like that, because toxins will be released when you are doing exercise. And no exercise, lifting weights is fine, jogging is fine, bicycle, whatever you want to do, but none of it is giving you the full bang for the buck, because if you're not in a magnetic field, the full benefits of exercise cannot be realized, because it takes the actual magnetic field to allow our cells to reach their fully charged status, where they have a 70 microvolt transmembrane potential, because cancer starts when they are uncharged, like your cell phone becomes useless. when it's uncharged. So we have to be in favor of the exercise, and we don't need to dwell in great detail on this picture that talks about endothelial nitric oxide synthases and getting the idea. But it's the general picture is that every blood vessel has got this little lining called endothelium. It's thinner than saran wrap. It's usually 1 cell in thickness, and that's really important stuff where it converts the arginine or citrulline that we might be eating into the nitric oxide, but it's not doing it efficiently today. It's becoming quite frightening to experts how much of a deficiency of nitric oxide we're seeing, not just in the low sex drive, not just in the men with this endothelial dysfunction, but with that long list of health problems I've shown you a few seconds ago. So we need to understand that nitric oxide is generated through different pathways in the endothelial cell. Endothelium is the skin that lines our arteries. And the nitric oxide tells heart cells what to do, so that it becomes pretty exciting to realize that what we're talking about can change lives. And when you have enough nitric oxide, your white blood cells are much more efficient killers of the infection that everybody has. I repeat, everybody has. So remember, my food, infection, genetics, heavy metal hormone toxin, which is easily condensed now in 2 separate 1-hour webinars on my GordonResearch.com website. If you choose to watch those, I will add years to your life and life to those years, because right now most of us have become aware that maybe we're eating too much wheat and we have big gluten-free things in the store, and most of us are aware now that fructose is killing us, and the more fructose you get, the fatter you're going to be, and that you can't use these aspartame and these other sweeteners across the board. There's just so many things we're doing wrong, but how can I help you find the things that we can do that are right? And of course, when you put all this on the back of the polluters who've got it to the point that provably every day you breathe, take a deep breath. Right now, you just took in lead and mercury and cadmium and all the stuff, because the particulates that cause the haze over a city are actually particles that contain lead, mercury, and cadmium. And amazingly enough, 30% of the mercury in your body, should you live in San Francisco, is actually from the burning of coal in China. So we could even, we burn our coal here and we help poison them. But it's not doing very good, so we've got to look at this picture. How can I make you more efficiently lowering your total body burden of pathogens? That would be, I repeat, cytomegalic virus. 96% of you have that. Or chlamydia. The other ones have that, and if you don't have that, you probably have Lyme or Candida or some stealth infection. It wouldn't make any difference what the name is. We have these problems. And always in trying to solve a problem, you can help people with antibiotic, and for some people that's all they're going to be able to afford, because the antibiotic buys them some time, but it doesn't explain why their own body wasn't making enough nitric oxide, so they would have this oxidative burst, respiratory burst, that would kill the bad guys. So the bad news is that no matter where you live on the planet Earth, you were born with 1,000 times more lead in every bone than any bones we checked just as recently as 700 years ago. So in 700 years, the industrial age has done its job and put bad stuff in the air, and the bad stuff in the air has come down in our water, food, and air, and it's in your bones, and it's not going to go away easily. So I have everybody on lifetime program utilizing the oral chelation and the zeolite and my power drink with the green and the vitamin C and the fiber and the maca. But not everybody is going to do all those things. Really nice doctor is treating, Dr. Nicholas Gonzalez, New York City, does fantastic on treating pancreatic cancer, and they have to admit his data are better than anybody else. Nobody has pancreatic cancer patients living that long. What does he do? Well, if you join FACT, if you're a health professional, you will not miss the story, because his recent interview in the Alternative Therapies peer-reviewed journal for November, December 2012, that interview of Dr. Nicholas Gonzalez explains more to you about cancer than you're going to get from any major center in the United States, from the viewpoint of the why pancreas was so useful, but why Dr. Gonzalez has everybody doing a coffee enema twice a day that they have to retain for 20 minutes. I use instead the simple idea of the maca and the organic greens and the fiber-based detox along with the vitamin C and the zeolite, because I call that my power drink. But what we're looking at here is this kidney thing. The kidney thing is filled with these little tufts of blood vessels. And these more and more become a problem as we grow older without the nitric oxide, and blood pressures go up. Amazingly enough, you read Mark Houston's book, What Your Doctor Never Told You About Hypertension, or any of his other books. He's the head of hypertension research, Vanderbilt University Medical School, and one of the major lecturers for the Institute for Functional Medicine, IFM, which was built and founded on Dr. Jeffrey Bland's basic work and is now run by Mark Hyman as the chairman of IFM. And if you learn that these people, they won't have you taking stupid drugs like statins, because there are ways out. You don't need drugs. They always have side effects. Now, in this nice picture, you could talk here that the endothelium is pretty thin. This is the open. There's a lot of room for the blood and not too much junk here. But when you look at the picture, we start to get lazy. We just you use the remote control. We don't need the television. We don't walk around the block. And 1 out of 2 of us is obese. When you're obese, you are pre-diabetic. You have metabolic syndrome. The unhealthy diet was part of the story when genetically modified food was given to all of us, because now we know that genetically modified means that you're going to have a leaky gut, because if you eat, and they find it impossible really to live in America without getting some corn or some wheat or some soy that's genetically modified. And when you get it, part of the modification was to include a pesticide in the food, and that pesticide is called Bacillus thuringiensis, and it winds up making your gut leaky, so you become sensitive to foods. You can take my power drink regularly and take a probiotic every day of your life and rotate your foods, not eating the same thing all the time. But what we're showing you here is that we run into trouble, and next thing you know, we have this thickening where it wasn't, and that thickening is going to start to crimp the available room for the blood supply. So this is the beginning of where we all have. You have these yellow streaks in 99% of 20-year-old dead bodies tested. So this is part of the game, and you could blame it on the fact that I lecture around the world. I was the first one to bring omega-3 to this country. And we provably have inflammation in excess, because why? Well, you have too many bad guys, viral, whatever name you want to give to the bad guys. We have all this concern, even today, about parasites. So wherever you go, we have the big attack on LDL, but don't pay attention to your cardiologist and don't take all those drugs that they want you to take. It is not the problem. But we do have, because we have gotten so much sugar in our diet, and we've gotten so inactive, that we do have the pre-diabetic. If your insulin fasting is over 5, you are pre-diabetic. Then we have the high blood sugars that we are talking today about how I can help you have a higher degree of health with some exciting things that we're going to get to here shortly, because nitric oxide deficit is epidemic, and we don't get out in the sun, which is good for us. And we all need vitamin D, but when you take vitamin D, you have to take vitamin K2. And then we have the problem that the bad people gave us this problem of the bisphenol A, which is a synthetic estrogen, and that winds up giving us elevated levels of not normal but synthetic estrogens. And then men are going to have testosterone, and we all get these blood clots. The blood clots are what kill you. That's the fibrinogen. And I have everybody taking sublingual methyl B12 and methylfolic acid so that you don't have too high a level of homocysteine, and otherwise we do have. And the blood pressure in this country is a problem because of low nitric oxide. And why do we have low nitric oxide? It's not because we all need to take a Viagra tablet or even some of the Cialis or even just taking arginine. I need to drill down deeper and get into what we're talking about today, which is the big picture. why we wind up with this heart attack disease. This is when the patient finally, the plaque breaks. The plaque is so thick. When the plaque breaks, a little blood squirts in there, and the body thinks you're going to bleed to death, and so the body tries to seal that little tear in that artery, and it makes a blood clot, and the blood clot moves down another foot, and it takes all the blood away from your brain, and suddenly you're paralyzed with your stroke, or you're blind, or you're in the hospital with your heart attack. So the endothelium I'm pointing out to you is just as important as your liver, and your liver is really important. But this is really teaching you how nitric oxide improves the circulation to every organ so that your liver is going to stay less toxic. We have so many people today with actual hepatitis coming from the diet that we're eating. It's amazing the things that we're finding wrong, and it's not that far away. It's got to change the diet and the lifestyle and do the exercise and get the toxins out. And so I'm going back now for the moment because I'm really excited about the idea that if I give you some knowledgeable tricks that will raise ATP, that's adenosine triphosphate, that's the currency of energy for the cell. So if you come into my doctor's office and you're just dragging your behind, you're like a cell phone that hasn't been charged lately. So how do I recharge you? Well, obviously I can do it with the PMF, but at the current time with all the accessories, it's selling for $23,000 at conferences, and so that's a lot of money. And so what we want is to have, in spite of how good it is, we want to have people able to do more at home with other things that we'll cover, and it's going to be pretty exciting. So that people who wouldn't be able to get to a doctor's office that might offer this magnetically induced cell exercise, because that's what we're talking about, exercise that's induced by the magnet. Your arm is not being moved by you voluntarily. The magnet is moving it, and that's why it's more powerful than when you lift weights at the gym. I'm not against lifting weights, but you're lifting weights on a planet that's cheating you because we're going through Earth change. That means planet change. That means pole shift. That means North Pole becomes South Pole. So there's going to be a lot of upheaval. It takes 10,000 years. It's not happening overnight. But we need to have everybody understand quantum biology because there's going to be some very nice synergy. We all understand that tens units have been around for a while, and now we have frequency-specific microcurrents and other form of microcurrent therapies, and we now have people putting vibration devices together and that will act as a gentle massage to give air. And then there's these lasers, and then there's the infrared, and then there's the heat. And so we're going to play a game here to have you see that all of this goes into natural ways of raising the body's photons, because when you talk photons, like look at this exciting research on light. Light you could think of as photons, but when you read the quantum mechanics and the quantum physics, it says, yeah, photons under the right conditions become electrons. And when I teach you that when you have a painful tooth and it's really killing you, you just get the laser I'm going to show you, or a painful ear, and I can stop that, and you don't even have to have that tooth pulled because I can supply those electrons. You can get some by taking a lot of vitamin C. But I have to teach you more tricks because we still have too many of us who can't play golf anymore. They can't dance with our wife. We can't get up and down the steps. We've got carpal tunnel. We have so many people with symptoms that are driving you crazy, that are impairing your quality of life, which are impairing your activity level, which means you're not going to live as long as you could or should have. So I've got to give you these exciting things. So here's doctors saying the healing power of light. And this is going to be something that we will be introducing within the next month. And this is my good friend, Dr. Robert Rowing, saying, I thought this was all nonsense. This didn't make sense. And he is now, recently, just sending a newsletter out to the readers of his great newsletter, Second Opinion. And he explained how his 94-year-old physician father trained at Johns Hopkins. When he bought for his father the $23,000 pulsed electromagnetic field device, his father said, son, this is too much money. I'm going on 94. But he soon saw that after the first treatment, he hadn't peed that well in 20 years, and so he kind of relented. He let it stay around for a little while. And so finally the son said, well, now I've got a buyer. Do you think we should sell it? And the dad said, no, I think I better keep it. And his sister, who's another MD trained at Johns Hopkins, says, Dad hasn't been this active in years. So we do know we can do things. And what we're teaching you here is things that can make the PMF go longer, further. So if you had, I have people that are going into Sudbury, Canada to see a really powerful healing lady that uses colonics and hyperbaric and has 4 of the PMF devices and treats everybody. And people come 100, 200, 300 miles one way to get this access, which has stimulated me to come up with things that are in the area of healing modalities where we're still in the physics, but we're talking in the new quantum physics, and we can have them go home with some of the things that we will be introducing, like specifically at the next one of these webinars on the 29th of January. We're going to be drilling down deep into one of these additional modalities. And that one alone, those who listen and are on that program will get a very nice discount on an otherwise very affordable at $1,995 device that after I have seen what is available anywhere in the world by having attended the largest meeting on medical devices annual in Dusseldorf called Medica. And I was just there in December, and I can tell you that I have seen $18,000 lasers that do not do with the $1,995 one that we're going to introduce. And there'll be a nice discount for those people who choose to tune in 2 weeks, and we drill down more deeply and try to see how important it is to give people help so that that bad wrist doesn't stop them from playing with their dog or playing with their kids or playing well. We've got to have you not lose function, because that exercise is such a key part of trying to fight back against the pollution that we've done to our planet and the degraded food supply because of the genetically modified, and the fact that we're all born with lead and mercury toxicity. In fact, a colleague of mine wrote a book called Time Bomb from Within, Mercury Poisoning in Dentistry by Dr. Stuart Schechner. This is going to wake people up because we all have these kind of problems. The other book is called Diagnosis Mercury by Hightower. It doesn't make any difference where you go. Anybody who looks will have to agree that if you spend enough money on the food, infection, genetics, heavy metal, hormone, toxin, my fight program, no one can get through that test. You're going to have infections and heavy metals and hormone deficiencies in genetics that are not working because your body has been abused by the toxins, so you do not have effective genes to repair things. For example, one of my patients came to me with diabetes, prostate cancer, as well as coronary artery disease, and his diagnosis on his gene test, which only costs $600 to do 92 genes, was he had a complete deletion of glutathione, which is the key detoxifier. So he's got to live on the power drink, and he's got to be on my zeolite, and he's got to be on the high-dose C and the oral chelation. He's got to do it all, and since he's not a youngster, we have to do some of it intravenously in addition to taking it by mouth. But if we look at this big picture, the mitochondria and near-infrared light therapy, these are exciting things that are happening as we start to put the cytochrome oxidase and begin to understand how all of this sets the stage, because we are energy depleted. And now we can talk about preserving function in your brain that otherwise was occurring because of secondary degeneration. So we can see light-induced killing of bacteria. And I indicate to you, everybody has pathogens. You don't have to wait till somebody thinks you had a tick bite. There isn't anybody who, with appropriate testing, doesn't fail the test. As I repeat, Harvard says 96% of you have CMV, which is part of the herpes family, and it's helping kill you as you get older. So the visible light-induced killing of bacteria is an important thing. So light activation is why we're going to be showing a device that is going to be amazingly combining in one device the electric stimulation, microelectrodes, light-emitting diodes, infrared lights, and magnets in one device. And that one has actually been FDA approved and will be covered by insurance, and doctors will be able to bill for it, and people who need it because of significant health problems are being reimbursed by insurance to even acquire their own units. So we're looking for ways to fill in the gap, because we have so many people that come to medical conference where we have the booth and treat people free of charge to introduce them to the PMF, and it changes people's lives. But with the economy being in ways it is, even though that's only $500 a month on lease, not every doctor is able to step up and lease anything because doctors are having trouble making ends meet, and now the government has decided to pay less to anybody that is a Medicare patient, so it's going to be tight. But I want to bring you into cold laser, low-level thing. This is going to be so exciting. And see, up till now, there was only these two things: the point, which was only going to give you 0.5 centimeters, and the clusters, which was going to just have to do the 0.5 and do it repeatedly. Well, forget that, folks. That's not what I bring you when I go around the world. I'm bringing you an incredible laser that gives you 4.5 square centimeters and does things that make the $14,000 and $18,000 lasers look like they are like the horse and buggy. They're in the wrong age. The competition is eclipsing them, and you will be very excited. And we're going to make this so that people who do wind up buying these, if at the end of a month they say, okay, I've gotten rid of the lesion, my lesion that I thought was cancer seems to be completely gone, and that's the only reason I bought it. So they're going to buy it back for, say, $350 less than what you paid, but that way you don't have to buy something that you're not sure you want to own. So that's being worked out. But I need you to know that the low-level laser energy does all these things, increases SOD, increases endorphin, accelerates sensation. There isn't any part of your body that we can't help. I don't care how long your neck has been bothering you, your back has been bothering you, your ankle, your knee, your carpal tunnel. I don't care what it's been. I don't care if it's a lesion that I had that hadn't healed in several years, no matter what trick I had. I have seen such dramatic things go away that absolutely, if we had biopsied them, I have total confidence would have been called cancer, but who cares? Because when I teach you how zeolite alone helps, just spraying the ACZ zeolite on the lesion or using the zeolite that we have as our eye clear program that you put on the skin, and it helps draw the toxins out. There's reasons that zeolite and the laser and the magnet, because the magnet alone, if you read up on it, is big story waiting. Got to go much more rapidly. We're going to run out of time. The nitric oxide is what you're increasing when you play with the laser. That's why we're going to teach you more about it in 2 weeks. This is what it looks like. It's life-changing. You're going to have acupuncture to treat the acupuncture points, and you will increase all the body's ability to heal. And as you start looking at oriental acupuncture points, we have easy to show you where these points are in your body that will help you deal with everything from depression to chronic gallbladder disease. So what we're teaching you is that nitric oxide even can help you lower cholesterol, and it helps even if you don't choose to learn about the laser, we'll be obviously looking at other things that you could do to the point with just pressure or any form of light to that area. And so what we want, even ultrasound. So there's all these exciting things that tie together the physics of treating parts of your body or areas or specific spots that are part of the acupuncture system, so that we wind up with you going back to playing basketball or playing baseball or riding your bike or recovering, because that's so important. If we're going to see that the data is pretty powerful, we're going to lift the 90 to 100 easily, but who is going to be doing that outside of the rest home? That's where my focus is. And so we're going to make sure you understand that this turns on bone growth. Why is that important? Well, because at age 90, if you fall, most people are going to break a hip, and that leads to a pinning, and that leads to a lot of pain, and the person doesn't move very fast. So I've got to keep your bones strong, so I've got to have you on D and K2 and HRT. The men are taking HRT. I have programs for all these things. But we have to have you know that the nitric oxide production is what we've been doing with PMF, but now we're finding other ways, like the low-level laser that's very affordable, that will allow people to own one in their home, and doctors are going to, it's predicted by experts with some of the laser kind that no doctor that's in any kind of physical healing modality, whether he's a chiropractor or a rehabilitation specialist, is going to be able to practice without having lasers. But they don't have to be $14,000 and $18,000 because of the breakthrough that we have found. So magnetism, because we know the Earth's magnetic field is weakening, and we know that depression has been really a major thing with dementia, depression, Alzheimer's, autism. We are seeing such dramatic successes in all those areas when we put the PEMF loop, we call it the butterfly, over both sides of the head like it's a helmet. And the FDA approved protocol is you treat the patient for an hour a day for 6 to 8 weeks. And if you have depression that didn't respond to drugs, that will be covered by insurance today. But we don't want people waiting because that's a ridiculous thing to first find that the drugs themselves are nonsense. They don't fix anything. What we like is using the devices that help the body get the toxins out, that give your body this unique form of magnetically induced cell exercise that causes the cell to go in, get into what we call autophagy. And even more importantly, it turns out that when you put this over an area of the body, something called bioporation is occurring. What is that? Well, go to Wikipedia and put in the word bioporation, and you'll see why I'm so confident that this is the future of all kinds of medicine, because they're talking now about bioporation being able to treat cancers better than anything else out there. But this is the one Dr. Oz was nice enough to talk about. But 2 days ago, January 9th, 3 days, another one was approved by our American FDA coming out of Israel. And again, this time they're talking about more things like chronic pain, Alzheimer's, bipolar, even helping in smoking cessation. So this is the picture of the one from Israel. So this is pretty exciting. Alzheimer's and all these things, and using magnets, and we understand that this is all working through increasing the production of ATP, adenosine triphosphate. That's if your cell is fully charged, like your cell phone is pretty good when you charge it, but if you go 2 days without charging, you don't get much. That's what I look at everybody as who comes in my office that's so tired and has got no energy. I see them as being, there's somebody looking for their body recharger, and that's what the PMF is. But now I don't want everybody to have one of these expensive units. And if we just point out to them who the doctor is that's got one, if the doctor is only 10 miles away, but you can buy some of these other things that we'll be introducing in the next 2 and 4 week intervals, then you'll have things so you won't have to go back so often, because as good as this thing is, I am 78 and I do not function as high as I can unless I get at least 10 minutes once, preferably twice a day, because I have to treat not just my head, I got to treat my back, and I got to treat my shoulder, I have to treat my prostate. And here's the bioporation language. The bioporation means that good things are going to get into the cell. We swallow expensive supplements. We've recently proven that the sick cell in your body doesn't take up the supplement. And of course, amazingly enough, they now prove that most people getting chemo for their cancer, the chemo doesn't go to the cancer either, unless you first go to the doctor that has a PMF and raise the tissue membrane potential of the cancer cells. If it's in the breast, just put that same loop that's over the head over the breast, and you'll bring it back to life so that it can use vitamin C, if that's what you're betting your life on. Or we actually have tests today to tell you what will work for your cancer. Costs $4,500, not covered by insurance, but these are exciting times. So melanoma, I have lots of experience with melanoma, and we want everybody to know that all these things we're talking about are going to lead to a simple bottom line. You're going to be making healthy bones, so if you do fall at 90, it won't mean anything. You'll just bounce back like you did as a kid. So then the electromagnetic field is absolutely able to make those knees function. Anytime I can get rid of pain that allows you to go back to dancing with your wife and playing golf and doing things, I've added years to your life, not just haven't improved you, because when we do everything, we live longer, we have less obesity, we do less sitting around pushing the remote control for the television. So it's the pulsed electromagnetic field that is actually helping in diabetic, relaxing the blood flow. So who needs to detox? Well, obviously you've heard me, everybody. So how does the magnet help? Well, it's proven that even a static magnet, which is, you can buy a static magnet, you can buy a magnet the size of a cigarette pack or the size of a small book and put it under a foot. It's going to do something. But when you get the new pulsing one, you're going to get probably 10 times or 20 times. And the problem is our time is worth money. But if you believe me, we're in favor of magnets of every kind, and this is my program. I've told you PEMF is going to be part of my FIGHT. Why? Because my FIGHT didn't mention the E2, the exercise with energy, and exercise and energy requires the magnet induced. So if I really have a total program, it's fighting with mice, food infection, genetics, heavy mental hormone, toxins, exercise with energy based on the magnet. So electrons is where all the game is going. But I have to get it clear that the sick area in your left eye that's not working well, you can take my vitamin C and your toe's going to live longer and you're going to live longer, but I might not get all of it to the eye that's going blind without adding some of these modalities, again, putting the physics back in physician, and we're going to drill down deeper on this in each one of the upcoming every 2 weeks so that you can understand better, but it wouldn't go anywhere if I didn't have a zeolite that is life-changing. Remember, zeolite is 40 different kinds of zeolite. You can buy one for $1,000 a ton to use for cat litter. And there's one that's pretty cheap that we have you bathe in. And you can feed that to your dog so your dog doesn't die of cancer. But you need to understand that the really high-end zeolite called Zeol Gold and the ACZ, these are two quite different products. The ACZ is a spray that you can put on any part of your body that's not healing very well. And then when you use the laser, then you'll be amazed how fast that will heal because the zeolite's always pulling the toxin out. So the oral chelation is still my calling card, the 9 pills. I wouldn't go a day without it. And then here you're getting the primrose and the omega-3, as well as the 3 yellow tablets that are the multiple, the 3 tan tablets that are the detoxifier called Essential Daily Defense, where we spent $10 million in the 1960s proving that this Essential Daily Defense was a bigger story by far than the stupid statins, because we stopped fatal blood clots that cause heart attack. Heart attack is a blood clot and a stroke is a blood clot. So we want you to know that we support your hormone function with really good products. You have to be on HRT. I want you on melatonin. I want you taking DHEA. I want you on growth hormone called GHS. I want you to learn more about how we can use the tribulus and these other things that are in this product. It's got all these ingredients, and we won't have time to explain it today, but HRT, listen to this carefully. This is a selective estrogen receptor modulator of the beta receptor. Who cares? Well, hold on, and you're going to care. Because what we're teaching you is that this is a natural anti-aging known for generations to keep people functioning at a high level when they were very old, and it's recognized by monks going back 1,000 years. But what I have to bring into your thought, so Pereira is the name of the source of the herbal remedy from Thailand, which totally solves every woman's problem. You will not have the problem with menopause. You will not have bone loss. You won't have vaginal atrophy. In fact, it regenerates the vagina of a 75-year-old woman to become more like an 18-year-old vagina so that we can enjoy nitric oxide-induced sex. So the NO sex is going to work because I've got to keep the parts of the body functioning. And maca added to the HRT makes women that have not been able to enjoy sex for many years, within 2 to 3 months of being on maca and HRT, there's a whole new life out there. And documented even in Christiane Northrup's book, Woman's Body, Woman's Wisdom, she tells you that the vagina, that people, absolutely nothing was working. It was so painful they couldn't make intercourse for 20 years. It becomes brand new and very healthy. But this is my power drink. On the right-hand side is the Zeol Gold, which is a form of zeolite that no one else in the world has brought. This is a huge story. It will require quite a long conference to bring you up to speed. But these are the overview that I want you to be aware. Pixie dust came from the tissues of a pig, and it made the finger grow back. But that wasn't the end of the story. Since then, it took him grew this leg back on this boy that had it largely blown off in Afghanistan. It's been front page news around the world. So pay attention to regenerative medicine. It's coming. And then look at these 2 mice. The one on the right is near death. The one on the left looked like the one on the right. This is what the this is called telomerase activation. What we did is we gave an SERM beta, selective estrogen receptor modulator, and they used a synthetic, and I have all of my friends on HRT, male and female, because this is what we saw. The testicle of this old animal had virtually no cells. we gave it this SERM beta, and it became all brand new with cells. So this has never happened. There's never been any research, and this came out of Harvard. It should be front news on everybody. So you need to know that in addition to that, you've been told by so many people that chelation therapy is nonsense, and I've had to fight this fight, as you know. I was the co-founder of the association to study chelation therapy, now called ACAM. And when we worked on this, it's now the study that cost $33 million, took 10 years, has now been reported very positively, showing that chelation therapy is not quackery. In fact, it actually beat standard therapy, particularly in diabetics. And of course, half of all people today are pre-diabetic. So this is terribly important to understand, and we'll bring you with more information about that. But what I want you to understand is that I will be bringing to you news about the future of medicine and why I'm so confident that because the cost of test is going to become a fraction of what it is today, all of us are going to live longer than we ever dreamed, because they've now put a little modifier on your iPhone for $200, and you can hold it over your heart, and immediately you have an EKG of your heart that you can forward to your doctor. You don't have to stand in a waiting room at the emergency room at the hospital when it was nothing more than indigestion. And so the erectile dysfunction and the whole need for nitric oxide ties into the whole story of oxidative therapies, and this is the quick view of how to learn more about PMF. It's the Pulse for Life website. I need you to all be very aware that we have all the information that it is working through nitric oxide to reduce pain, reduce inflammation, restore range of motion. I don't let my friends have a knee replacement until I absolutely can't make their knee function as it should. And usually, if they are willing to spend their own money, because they see, if they buy the free one that the hospital gives you and you get your knee replaced, if you're going to be part of my team, you're going to be alive at 80 and 90, aren't you? Because I don't have anybody dying of heart attacks, period. I don't have anybody dying of fatal stroke. So if you're going to be around that long, the knee they give you won't last more than 10 years. You need another knee and then another knee. So I want you to save your own parts. My forum on anti-aging is for any health professional. We have 3,500 members. It's growing, and we share here among health professionals how we treat breast cancer or prostate cancer or autism or multiple sclerosis, which is as easy as falling off a log. I've never failed. So anyhow, it's really interesting for you to know that I still do health consultations, and I will do that for any doctor who's stumped and wants to see what my approach, because if the doctor, your doctor, chooses to get on the line, I reduce my $300 an hour fee by 50% so that your doctor can hear what I have to say about what my approach would be for your problem. And I thank you so much for joining our presentation today, and I look forward to you joining on January 29th, when you are going to get an offer that's going to get you a little bit excited, because that $1,900 1995 laser is going to have a one-time only offer that you may really want to learn all about, because we have doctors who've already bought 2 and 3 of them after they've had one of these units for a couple of days, and they've seen what it's done for them. They want it for their patients. So please tune in 2 weeks, and thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Dr. Gordon. This webinar will be available on Dr. Gordon's new website at www.gordonresearch.com. Also, the products that Dr. Gordon spoke about today are available at Longevity Plus. You can reach a product consultant at 1-800-580-7587 to place an order. We value all of you, and thank you for joining our webinars.
The